I'm also thinking through it. My oldest, he's 8, and I can already tell he's got a little bit of this anxiety stuff going on. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned this idea of like trying to predict the future and all of that. What can we do, either for ourselves or as parents when we have somebody who's not an adult? So we can't fully we can't have this conversation with them, but we recognize that they're doing this. They're seeing worst case scenarios. They're fearful of what could happen, or more often what I see is they are trying to anticipate the future.
Yeah. So you can't have this level of conversation, but you can have a bite size of this. And so I can tell you, for my 5-year-old, we talk about the parts of the brain. And so we talk about I literally point to the front. I said, this is our thinking brain. Then when we're in our thinking brain, we do math, we do science, we can do this. Here's the part of their brain that is when you're throwing yourself on the floor, when you want to yell, when you feel love, where you're excited, right? And he literally said to me the other day, he was really angry, screaming, and it's like, I'm on my emotional brain. You can't get me out. And I looked at him, I said, you're right. So then I valued, I can't get you out, right? You can get yourself out. And we have like a little list of things that he can do. If he's hangry, he can do this, right? All of this just says the principles for kids is teaching them to label emotions. So kids can have different types of emotions, have depth of emotions. And then as an adult, our job is to be able to sort of help them regulate it, right? So if your kid is predicting the worst case scenario, it's okay to say, so what makes you think that's going to happen? And if that happens, how do we handle that together? Like have them actually talk about it, right? And then don't fix it. And that's the hard part as a parent. Don't go in and say, well, if this happens, then I'm going to do this, this, and this. It's okay. What could we do? See where they are. Bring curiosity and try to understand, how is their little brain predicting this? What is the connection it's making? Because you're going to see there's something in their logic that's not going to make sense, especially if you're feeling okay. And then you sort of help them connect that logic slowly. Yeah,
it's funny as you were saying it, because I was thinking one of the places my son is anxious at this moment is in baseball. He's on a new team and he's like stepped up a level and all of these things. And when I ask him, what are you worried about or whatever, and he gives me an answer, it's frustrating for me because I'm in my head. I go, well, that's just not the case. That's not something to worry about. And then I just want to tell him that. I don't, because I've got a little level of intelligence, but but I want to, right? And then I'm stuck because I ask the questions, right? I say, well, what happens if that does happen? What's the worst part? Blah, blah, blah. And he goes through it, but I just feel like we don't make progress, and it's funny because everything I'm doing for him is like the same things I do for myself, the same avoidance process of like, well, because there's a logic to it, I'm just going to skip past the actual solution or the exercise. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's funny. I hadn't even thought of it.
Yeah. I mean, so, our kids learn from us. That's for sure. Right. Two things that I think you're saying there that's important. The first one is maybe this idea of helping him just link thoughts, emotions, and behaviors might be helpful. Okay, this is your prediction. And when you say to yourself, like, I'm not going to make it to the team, or they're going to be mad at me, whatever it is he's saying, how does that make you feel? Like, let's label emotions. As a society, we hate this idea, but from emotion regulation, we know that just labeling emotions decreases the intensity of emotion, right? If you have range of emotions, and then ask him, what do you want to do in that case? Like, what are some of the solutions that we can have together here? So, and the reason I'm suggesting this, you want to slow it down the process so that he can, on his little brain, connect those things that we're talking about. And by doing that, you're also slowing down your own process, so you're not jumping in to solve it. Because that's what we want to do as adults. We want to actually not have our kids have the anxiety, not have them predict. And by doing that, we're just engaging in mutual avoidance.
Right. I could see that. It's tough.